Hi, everyone. Today I come to you not with a book haul or with a book review, but sort of with a suggestion about something new that I might try with this channel and with what I'm reading, and more specifically about viewer or subscriber interaction with what I'm reading at the time. So up till now, I've only posted reviews of the books that I've been reading, that I've read in the past, and then I come to you and I sort of talk about the book and everything. But I was thinking, starting next month in January 2013, to start something a bit new. And it's just new for me because I've seen quite a few people do it on other channels. But it's basically in order to create a little bit more interaction instead of me just coming to you and saying, here's the book. I'm going to, actually I already did it last night. I went to my library and just sort of, walked around and picked some random things off the shelf that looked sort of interesting. And I was thinking, I'll pick 4 or 5 things. I actually got 5. And I'll talk briefly about them in this video. And I was thinking maybe if someone wants to hear a review of one of these 5, let me know. Write a few sentences. Let me know why it sounds interesting, why you want to hear me talk about it, and I'll gladly review it. I'm thinking, say if this video is to pick the book for January, I can probably have the review up by February, maybe even a bit earlier, depending on how things go. I don't know. But I don't know how much interaction I'll actually have on this. I'm thinking I'll probably be lucky if I just get a few requests. But, whoever just gives me the best reason for what they want to hear or why they want to hear me talk about it, I'll probably end up doing that book. But I'm not just going to do, any old book because I'm not interested in absolutely everything. So like I said, I picked 5, and I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about each of the 5 books, and then you guys can let me know in the comment section what you think about them or why you'd like to hear me talk about one of them. The first one is by the famous American sociologist C. Wright Mills. Mills wrote, this is the book, sorry, it's called The Power Elite by C. Wright Mills. He wrote this in the 50s, and it's really about how he thinks that American society at its base is run by anti-democratic forces. Specifically, they sort of manifest and materialize in 3 different ways. He talks about the military, the family, and the corporation, and how these sort of, like I said, anti-democratic forces, almost authoritarian forces, use power to manipulate actions and people to get the ends that they kind of desire. And that might not sound like that controversial of a thesis, but you have to keep in mind it's almost 60 years old. So this is before, even Foucault. This is before many of the people that are writing about things like this. Now it almost sounds sort of par for the course to talk about something like this. But I did read earlier this year a book by Sheldon Wolin called Democracy Incorporated that was very much along the lines of this book. And he specifically talks about governmental institutions. And Wolin even says that he doesn't even think democracy exists in the United States anymore. So if this is an interesting topic to you, go check out my review of Democracy Incorporated by Sheldon Wolin, or just let me know why you want to read this. Why you want me to read this, excuse me. It's called The Power Elite by C. Wright Mills. The next book I have for you guys is called Upmus Method and the Decay of Dialogue, From the Art of Discourse to the Art of Reason, by Walter Ong S.J., who's a Jesuit. This book is about several different aspects of the transition from pre-book culture to book culture in, I guess, the late Middle Ages or the very, very beginning of, I guess, what we would call, early modern history. Ramus was a pretty influential 16th century logician and humanist, and he actually ended up influencing a number of people with the topics that he wrote about. Unfortunately, he's sort of been forgotten as a historical figure himself, but several hundred years ago, many people studied him, and I think that's what Ong talks about in this book. Ong is also a fascinating guy in his own right. Like I said, he was a Jesuit, but he wrote a lot of interesting things about technology and culture. Never read Ong before, so I just sort of pulled this off the shelf. If anyone wants to hear me talk about this. Upmus Method and the Decay of Dialogue, from the Art of Discourse to the Art of Reason. Next up, this is called Absent Minds, Intellectuals in Britain by, move my finger there, Stefan Collini. To be honest, I don't know much about this book. A good friend of mine actually did a book review, not on a book site or YouTube, but he actually did one for Oxford University Press. And one of the ways that they paid him was they said, okay, you could have this sort of honorarium for $200 or whatever, or you could have free books from Oxford University Press. So as a Christmas present in 2010, he said, okay, I'm just going to forego the honorarium, and for your Christmas present, you can have all of these fabulous books from Oxford University Press. So I was incredibly grateful. I've read a few of them. I think he got me 8 or 9 of them. And this is one of them that I haven't read. But it's one that I'm really interested in, and I can't tell you too much about, other than the fact that it's about intellectuals in Britain over about the past 150 years or so, from the late 19th century to the present. Next, book called Cardinals Cosmos, The Worlds and Works of a Renaissance Astrologer by Anthony Grafton. Cardano was as the title suggests, an astrologer, but also a really, really gifted sort of polymath. He was a traveler and a mathematician and an antiquities scholar and an astrologer. And this basically just talks about his life, his work, his travels. It sounds really interesting. I've read one of Grafton's works before. He's a historian at Princeton, and he loves talking about these sort of marginal figures right at the transition between the Middle Ages and early modern history. So I thought that looked interesting too. The last one is The First Moderns by William R. Everdell. This I think might be another one of those books that my friend got me a couple of years ago for Christmas. And this is basically just a series of biographical sketches from people that are in some sense related to the idea of modernity. It's very interdisciplinary. He talks about scientists, writers, artists, composers, Freud is in here, Rimbaud, Whitman, Ludwig Boltzmann, mathematicians, George Cantor, Richard Dedekind, and Gottlieb Frege. They're in here too. So it sort of looks like a series of biographical sketches, which could be really interesting. But if you want to hear me talk about any of these things, just let me know. Give me a reason, and we'll talk about this. And I'll read one of these next month and post a review, hopefully no later than early February or so. Thanks, guys. Let me know what you think.